The mountain didn't fall, it launched. At precisely 10:39 p.m. on October 9th, 1963, the side of Monte Toc gave way. A slab of the mountain, 700 million tons of rock, the size of a city block, broke loose and plunged into the Vaiont Dam's reservoir. It didn't land, it slammed. Faster than a train, faster than thought. The lake responded with rage. A wall of water, 800 feet high, rose into the sky. It soared over the dam. It tore through the narrow gorge. And in less than a minute, it erased entire towns. There were no sirens, no alarms, just the sound of the earth itself collapsing. The people of Longarone didn't even have time to scream. The Vaiont Dam was an icon of Italian progress. Built in the rugged Dolomite Mountains, just north of Venice, it was one of the tallest dams in the world. 860 feet of arched concrete wedged between two stone walls. It held back millions of tons of water, creating a vast, mirror-like reservoir that shimmered beneath Monte Toc. It was commissioned by SAD, Società Adriatica di Elettricità, the most powerful energy company in post-war Italy. The plan was to supply hydroelectric power to a booming industrial economy. Construction began in the 1950s. By 1960, the dam stood complete, slim, elegant, a marvel of modern engineering. The press hailed it as a cathedral of energy. But cathedrals don't usually kill thousands of people. The first red flags appeared before a single drop of water touched the reservoir. Geologists warned of the mountain's composition, layers of limestone and clay, prone to absorbing water and becoming unstable. Monte Toc, in particular, had a reputation. Toc, in local dialect, literally means rotten. Old farmers told stories of the slopes shifting in storms. A 1920 landslide had buried livestock in the same valley. The area was known for collapses. But SAD was confident. They ordered tests, which confirmed that the region posed a moderate risk. Moderate enough, they said, to proceed. After all, power was needed, and the mountain hadn't fallen yet. By 1962, the reservoir had filled significantly. And almost immediately, things began to go wrong. Small landslides cascaded into the lake. The slopes above began to shift measurably. Cracks formed in roads and footpaths. Residents of nearby Erto and Casso reported strange rumblings in the night. In May 1963, a massive portion of hillside collapsed into the lake, sending a wave 60 feet high over the dam. It caused minor flooding and alarmed dam workers, who began to push for drastic action. But officials downplayed it. The public was told the dam was safe. The company assured authorities that the structure itself was sound, which it was. The dam could survive a landslide. It was built to flex, to resist pressure. But they were asking the wrong question. It wasn't whether the dam would survive. It was whether the people below would. Behind closed doors, engineers at SAD realized the mountain was on the move. Monte Toc was slowly detaching, inch by inch. In September 1963, they began lowering the water level, first cautiously, then urgently. They knew they were racing a clock. They just didn't know how little time they had left. On October 9th, monitors observed the slope accelerating. In one day, it shifted over 3 feet. Still, no evacuation was ordered. Instead, dam workers stayed at their posts. Longarone residents went to bed. Children laid out their school clothes. Couples turned off the radio and kissed goodnight. Nobody knew they were sleeping at the bottom of a loaded gun. The final break happened just after 10:30 p.m. The landslide was not gradual. It was instant. The entire southern face of Monte Toc detached at once. Over 270 million cubic meters of earth hit the lake. It took just 20 seconds. The wave it produced rose higher than the Statue of Liberty. It didn't break evenly. It exploded like a cannon blast. The dam, remarkably, held. Not a single crack. It did its job perfectly. But that didn't matter. The water launched over the top and slammed into the gorge below. It created a wind so powerful it stripped the leaves off trees. Then it hit Longarone. The town had 2,000 residents, families, schools, churches, shops. The wave didn't flood it, it disintegrated it. Entire apartment buildings were swept away in one motion. Concrete foundations were pulled from the earth. A church was crushed flat. The town was gone in 45 seconds. Bodies were thrown hundreds of yards. Some were never found. Others were buried in silt so deep that rescue teams couldn't reach them. Further down the valley, the villages of Pirago, Rivalta, Villanova, and Fai were also obliterated. One man, a night watchman, was thrown through a window and woke up in a tree. He was one of the few survivors. Erto and Casso, perched high above the reservoir, were spared the wave, but not the trauma. Their houses shook with the force of the collapse. Residents watched in horror as their mountain fell, heard the roar, felt the wind, saw the valley disappear. It was the sound of everything they knew being unmade. Rescue efforts began at dawn. What they found looked like a war zone. Longarone no longer existed. It was a smear of mud and concrete. Survivors wandered aimlessly, barefoot and bloodied. Some couldn't speak. Some simply screamed. 2,000 people were dead. Whole families, hundreds of children, generations. A single classroom of students was wiped out. A maternity ward vanished. One man lost 31 relatives. Another came home from a business trip to find not just his house gone, but the entire street. In Rome, officials scrambled to respond. Pope Paul VI called it a tragedy. The government declared a state of mourning. But behind the scenes, damage control had already begun. State executives were summoned. Why hadn't the valley been evacuated? Why were the warnings ignored? Why had there been no sirens? The answer, according to prosecutors, was profit. Internal documents surfaced during the investigation. They revealed Sadie knew of the risks. Engineers had predicted the scale of the landslide with eerie accuracy. Some estimates were within 10% of the actual event. They had even performed simulations using scaled models, which showed waves high enough to threaten Longarone. But they didn't release those findings. Evacuation, they argued, would cause panic, undermine investor confidence, delay production, invite lawsuits. So they said nothing. In 1971, 8 years later, several officials were convicted of manslaughter. Sentences were short. Most served under house arrest or were pardoned. The company was absorbed into the state power agency. No one paid real restitution. No one could. How do you pay for 2,000 lives? Today, the Vaiont Dam still stands. Empty. Silent. Watching. It's dry now. The reservoir is gone. The scar from the landslide remains, an enormous wound carved into the face of Monte Toc, visible for miles. Tourists come to see it. School children visit. Survivors give interviews, voices lined with memory and grief. But some refuse to return. One woman, who lost her husband and 2 daughters, said this: "The dam stood, so they called it a success. But what do you call it when the dam lives and the people die?" Thank you for listening to Road to Ruins. Subscribe for more true stories where systems fail and people pay the price.